August 18, 1965, 2:30 in the afternoon. Indochina time, Van Thuong Village Complex, Quang Nam Ngai Province. A United States Marine Corps rifleman goes prone behind a rice paddy dike while the man beside him stands upright with 72 pounds of pressurized fuel strapped to his spine. The prone Marine aims at a bunker 50 meters ahead. The standing Marine walks toward it. Twin cylindrical tanks rise above his shoulders. His weapon has an effective range of 20 meters. The bunker's AK-47 has a range of 300. Tanks on his back, everyone else stepping back. He is a flamethrower operator, and doctrine has just made him the priority target for every weapon on the battlefield. The popular image casts the flamethrower as a weapon of terror that makes enemies flee without fighting. War movies show bunkers erupting in flame while defenders abandon positions en masse. Official doctrine describes the M2 as a bunker reduction tool for suppressing fortified positions. The myth holds that flame ends fights without conventional casualties. But at Van Thuong on August 18th, 4 of 7 Marine flamethrower operators become casualties within the first hour of contact. The weapon does not create safety. It purchases 20 meters of effectiveness with a man's silhouette and everyone's attention. The M2 flamethrower enters Marine Corps and Army service in World War II and remains standard equipment through Korea into Vietnam with minimal modification. 2 cylindrical tanks, one holding 4 gallons of thickened fuel, one holding compressed nitrogen propellant at 300 pounds per square inch. Mount on an aluminum pack frame that distributes 72 pounds across the operator's back and shoulders. A rubberized hose connects the tanks to a wand with a pistol grip and trigger. Maximum effective range reaches 40 meters under ideal conditions, but combat doctrine recommends engagement inside 25 meters for accuracy against point targets like bunker apertures and firing slits. Each tank load provides 7 to 10 seconds of continuous flame, parceled into 2 to 3 second bursts to conserve fuel. Reload requires 8 to 12 minutes in the rear with spare tanks. In practical terms, the flamethrower operator has one engagement window per objective. He fires his bursts, empties his tanks, and withdraws. Standard Marine Corps rifle squads in 1965 include 13 men, 1 squad leader, 3 4-man fire teams. Flamethrower assignment comes from battalion or company headquarters on the morning of an operation based on the expected target set: bunkers, tunnel mouths, trench lines. The weapon goes to whoever the platoon commander designates. There is no separate military occupational specialty for flamethrower operators. On paper, they are riflemen with serial number 0311, combat engineers with 1371, or infantry temporarily detached. The assignment changes mission to mission, man to man. Training consists of 1 or 2 live fire exercises where recruits learn ignition sequence, burst control, and the cardinal rule. Never stand still while firing. The enemy training manual is simpler. A 1966 captured Viet Cong document recovered near Cu Chi instructs, shoot the soldier with the tanks on his back before he reaches 20 meters. People's Army of Vietnam, standing orders from 1967, list flamethrower operators alongside radio men and officers as priority targets. Every combatant on both sides understands the weapon's tactical geometry. To kill a bunker at 20 meters, the operator must approach to 20 meters. To approach to 20 meters, he must cross the kill zone that keeps everyone else at 50. The tanks on his back make him visible at 200 meters in open ground, 100 in jungle. When he ignites, muzzle flash and fuel vapor announce his exact position for 3 seconds. Standard rifle squad tactics call for concentrated fire and maneuver, multiple men advancing by bounds under covering fire. The flamethrower inverts this. One man moves forward alone because the weapon only works if he does, and everyone else holds position because proximity to 72 pounds of fuel under pressure is its own hazard. August 18, 1965, 6:30 in the morning. Indochina time, 3 kilometers inland from the South China Sea. The 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines begins a heliborne assault into Landing Zone Blue, west of the Van Tuong village complex. Intelligence reports estimate 1 Viet Cong regiment entrenched across 6 hamlets with interconnected bunker networks. This is Operation Starlite, the first major American ground offensive of the war. Battalion Commander Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Muir assigns 7 M2 flamethrowers across his rifle companies for bunker reduction. At 2:30 in the afternoon, India Company, 3rd Battalion, encounters fortified positions along the northern tree line of Quang Hamlet. The bunkers are standard Viet Cong construction, logs and packed earth with firing slits angled to create interlocking fields of fire. Rifle fire and M79 grenade rounds produce no observable effect. Company Commander Captain Bruce Webb orders his flamethrower operator forward. Lance Corporal James Blake, serial number 0311, rifleman, draws the assignment because he scored highest on the flamethrower qualification range 2 months earlier. He is 20 years old, from Pennsylvania. Blake rises from cover behind a paddy dyke while his fire team remains prone. The twin tanks add 18 inches to his height. At 60 meters from the bunker, he begins moving forward in a half-crouch. AK-47 fire from the left bunker strikes him in the shoulder before he covers 10 meters. He goes down. Another rifleman drags him back. The flamethrower remains with Blake, igniter damaged, unusable. Webb assigns the flamethrower to Private First Class Robert Hernandez. Hernandez straps on 72 pounds, checks the igniter, rises from cover. He makes it 30 meters before rifle fire from a concealed spider hole wounds him in the leg. He falls forward. The weapon discharges into the paddy water. The pattern repeats across India Company's front. By 4 in the afternoon, 4 of the battalion's 7 flamethrower operators have become casualties, none having successfully engaged their targets. The remaining 3 operators approach bunkers only under the cover of M48 Patton tanks from 3rd Tank Battalion. With 60 tons of armor between them and the bunker slits, operators close to 15 meters and deliver flame. 6 bunkers burn out. Viet Cong defenders retreat into tunnel networks. After-action reports credit the flamethrower with limited effectiveness due to exposure requirements and note that enemy fire consistently targeted operators before effective range was achieved. Medical evacuation records list Blake and Hernandez among 45 Marine casualties that day, but do not disaggregate by weapon assignment. There is no line on the casualty card for flamethrower operator. Captain Bruce Webb, commanding officer of India Company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, August 1965. You could see them looking for the tanks. The moment a man stood up with that rig, every weapon swung to him. It wasn't suppressive fire, it was aimed fire, and it was immediate. Tactical geometry explains the casualty rate. A prone rifleman presents a target approximately 10 inches high and 36 inches wide at 50 meters. A standing flamethrower operator presents a target 66 inches high, 72 inches with the tanks. The differential in visible surface area approaches 6-to-1. Viet Cong defensive doctrine instructs bunker defenders to hold fire until American forces close inside 100 meters, then concentrate on support weapons first, machine guns, radios, flame. The flamethrower appears on the target priority list alongside the M60 machine gun and the AN/PRC-25 backpack radio because all 3 enable the rifle squad to function at distances greater than individual marksmanship. Neutralize the flamethrower and the bunker remains viable. Neutralize the operator before he reaches 20 meters and the entire assault stalls. At Van Tuong, the geometry works. Bunkers survive longer than operators. The flamethrower demands aggression, but the weapon's effective range places the operator inside the enemy's most lethal engagement envelope while removing him from the protective mass of his squad. Not a force multiplier, but a solitary bet. Tanks on his back, everyone else stepping back, and the math is simple. You either burn the bunker or the bunker burns you, and the bunker sees you first. January the 7th, 1966, 9:15 in the morning, Indochina time, 15 kilometers northwest of Saigon in Binh Duong province. A tunnel mouth opens at the base of a termite mound inside a rubber plantation, and Specialist 4 Raymond Gonzalez has 72 pounds on his back and orders to go in first. Gonzalez is a combat engineer assigned to 1st Battalion, 5th Infantry Regiment, 25th Infantry Division. The 25th arrives in Vietnam in late 1965 and establishes its base camp at Cu Chi, directly atop one of the largest Viet Cong tunnel complexes in 3rd Corps. By early 1966, division engineers discover that the red clay soil beneath Cu Chi conceals more than 200 kilometers of tunnels, command posts, aid stations, supply caches, all connected by passages too narrow for most American soldiers. Standard operating procedure for tunnel clearance involves grenades, CS gas, and demolitions. When those fail, when movement sensors still detect activity 30 meters inside, doctrine calls for flamethrowers. The tunnel at the termite mound measures 60 centimeters wide and 80 centimeters high. Engineers have already dropped grenades and pumped CS gas through the entrance. Movement sensors still detect activity deeper in the system. Battalion Commander Lieutenant Colonel James Grimsley orders flame. Gonzalez kneels at the tunnel mouth, removes his helmet to fit through the opening, and pushes the wand inside. His squad, 8 men, takes cover behind rubber trees 12 meters back. Not because of enemy fire, because of the fuel. He squeezes the trigger. Flame travels 15 meters down the passage until the tunnel angles left and the fire stops. The burst lasts 3 seconds. At the 4-second mark, AK-47 fire erupts from a concealed spider hole 8 meters to Gonzalez's right, a secondary fighting position covering the tunnel entrance. 2 rounds strike Gonzalez in the back. Both hit the aluminum pack frame, not the fuel tanks. He rolls away from the tunnel mouth. A rifleman suppresses the spider hole. Gonzalez survives with bruised ribs and metal fragments in his shoulder blade. The flamethrower does not explode. Post-battle examination reveals the tanks are pressurized to 300 pounds per square inch, but constructed with deliberate weak points. Valve seals and hose connections designed to fail before the tanks rupture. A bullet through the tank wall depressurizes the system and spills fuel, but does not detonate the thickened gasoline. This engineering reality does not change the battlefield perception. Every infantryman in 1st Battalion, 5th Infantry believes the tanks will explode if hit. They stay back. They give him space. They watch him walk forward alone. Specialist 4 Raymond Gonzalez, combat engineer, January 1966. I asked why me, and the lieutenant said, because I was the smallest guy who could still carry the tanks. That's how you got the job. Size and bad luck. Tunnel warfare creates the most compressed geometry in Vietnam. A tunnel mouth is a fatal funnel. One way in, one way out, and whoever goes first absorbs the fire from whoever waits inside. The flamethrower offers standoff, 20 meters of flame instead of a man crawling into darkness with a pistol. But standoff only works if the operator survives the approach, and the approach is covered. Viet Cong tunnel defense doctrine establishes 3-layer security. Spider holes covering the entrance, blast walls inside to deflect flame, and multiple retreat routes allowing defenders to reposition after each intrusion. The system assumes Americans will use flame. It plans for the operator's exposure. Between January and June 1966, 25th Infantry Division engineers conduct more than 100 tunnel clearance operations. Division records list 17 engineer casualties during tunnel operations, but do not specify how many involved flamethrowers. Commanders begin substituting the M10-8 mechanized flamethrowers, mounted on M113 armored personnel carriers. but the M108 cannot maneuver into dense jungle or rubber plantations where vegetation conceals most tunnel entrances. The backpack M2 remains the tool for close ground. Engineers rotate the flamethrower assignment every operation. No one carries it twice in a row if the platoon sergeant can avoid it. Gonzalez carries it 4 more times between January and March before rotating home. The job is walking toward the tunnel mouth while everyone else hugs cover behind rubber trees, tanks on his back, hoping the spider hole gunner did not see you first. February 12, 1968, 11:20 in the morning. Indochina time, Tujam Pagoda, southeastern Hue. Lance Corporal John Morrison stands in a cratered street with 72 pounds on his back and a wand pointed at a 2-story seminary where North Vietnamese army soldiers have fortified the windows with sandbags. Morrison is a rifleman assigned to Hotel Company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines. He has been in Hue for 6 days. This is day 13 of the Battle of Hue, the longest sustained urban combat American forces fight in Vietnam. On January 31st, 1968, the first day of Tet, People's Army of Vietnam and Viet Cong forces seize most of Hue and convert masonry buildings into fortified strong points. By February 12th, Marines have cleared the south bank of the Perfume River block by block. The seminary is one of 14 structures Hotel Company must take today. Rifle fire and M72 Law rockets have breached the ground floor walls but have not dislodged defenders from the upper floors. Company Commander Captain James Coolican orders flame. Morrison has carried the M2 3 times in the past week. He is 21 from Ohio, and he has learned that urban terrain compresses the flamethrower's geometry even tighter than jungle. In jungle, the operator approaches a bunker concealed by vegetation with some hope of surprise. In a city street, he approaches a building in full view of every window within 200 meters. There is no concealment. There is exposure, measured in seconds. Morrison moves toward the seminary entrance in a low crouch, hugging the right wall where rubble provides minimal defilade. His fire team provides covering fire from positions behind a collapsed wall 30 meters back. At 25 meters from the entrance, AK fire from a second-floor window strikes the pavement beside his boots. He freezes against the wall. The tanks on his back prevent him from going fully prone or taking cover inside doorways too narrow for the aluminum frame. He waits 10 seconds while his fire team suppresses the window with concentrated M60 fire. At 15 meters from the entrance, he aims the wand upward toward the second-floor windows and squeezes the trigger. Flame arcs through the air and splashes against masonry below the window line. The 2-second burst consumes 1/5 of his fuel load. He adjusts aim and fires again. Flame enters the room. Smoke billows out. No return fire comes from that position. Morrison approaches the entrance and directs the wand through the doorway into the ground floor corridor. The 3rd burst empties his tanks. He steps back. Riflemen move past him into the building to clear the upper floors. Hotel Company secures the seminary by 12:40 in the afternoon with 3 Marine casualties, none involving the flamethrower operator. This is Morrison's only successful flamethrower engagement in Hue, where he ignites, delivers effective fire, and walks away without wounds. Urban combat creates a paradox for the flamethrower. Cities offer abundant fortified structures ideal for flame attack, but city streets eliminate concealment and offer the operator no covered approaches. Between February 1st and February 25th, 1968, Marine units in Hue conduct 47 documented flamethrower attacks against PAVN positions. After-action reports credit flame with reducing 19 structures and forcing abandonment of 12 others. But medical records list 11 Marine casualties among flamethrower operators during the same period, a casualty rate approaching 23%. The weapon works when the operator survives the approach. The approach requires exposing yourself to every firing position the building contains. Doctrine in Hue evolves to use M48 Patton tanks equipped with turret-mounted flamethrowers, reserving the M2 for interior clearing after outer defenses fall. But doctrine and practice diverge when the company needs a building cleared now, when tanks cannot navigate rubble-choked streets, when the only tool available is a man with 72 pounds on his back stepping into the open while everyone else stays behind cover. November 19th, 1967, 10:45 in the morning, Indochina time, Hill 875, Jak To, the 2nd Battalion, 503rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade claws up a jungle-covered slope against a fortified bunker complex, and Specialist 4, Michael Kelly, gets the flamethrower because he is standing closest to the platoon sergeant when the sergeant starts looking. Kelly is a grenadier, M79 Alpha Company. He has never fired an M2 flamethrower. He has never trained on the weapon system. The battalion has been fighting on this hill for 72 hours. People's Army of Vietnam forces occupy the military crest with an estimated 40 interconnected bunkers. By November 19th, American casualties exceed 100 with the hilltop still held by North Vietnamese forces. Battalion requests airstrikes. Cloud cover prevents aircraft from reaching the target. Battalion requests artillery. Forward observers cannot adjust fire accurately through triple canopy jungle. Company commanders resort to direct assault with flamethrowers. Alpha Company has 2 M2 units that morning. The first operator, Private First Class David Holland, becomes a casualty at 9:30 in the morning when AK fire strikes him in the chest during his approach to a bunker 30 meters upslope. Holland dies before the medic reaches him. At 10:45 in the morning, when Alpha Company prepares another push, the platoon sergeant tells Kelly to take Holland's M2 and move forward. Kelly straps on 72 pounds he has never carried. The platoon sergeant gives him 30 seconds of instruction. Aim low at the bunker aperture. Fire in 2-second bursts. Do not stop moving once you ignite. Kelly follows his squad uphill through vegetation so dense the men cannot see more than 10 meters ahead. At 15 meters from the nearest bunker, the squad goes prone behind fallen logs. Kelly does not go prone because the tanks prevent it. He crouches behind a tree and moves left of the squad's position. RPD machine gun fire from the bunker passes over the prone squad and strikes Kelly in the left arm and abdomen. He goes down. The flamethrower discharges uncontrolled as he falls, and flames spreads across the jungle floor but does not reach the bunker. Medic treats Kelly 15 meters downslope behind cover. He survives long enough for medevac extraction by UH-1 helicopter but dies in flight before reaching the hospital at Pleiku. Time of death, 11:34 in the morning. He carries the flamethrower for 49 minutes. Alpha Company does not attempt another flamethrower attack that day. The battalion takes Hill 875 on November 23rd after air strikes finally penetrate the weather. The hill costs the battalion 158 killed and wounded over 5 days. Assignment by proximity becomes informal field practice when units exhaust their pool of trained operators. Flamethrower training in the United States prepares volunteers for the weapons mechanics and tactics. But in sustained combat, the volunteer system collapses when casualties exceed replacement rates. Commanders assign the M2 to whoever is available when the mission requires bunker reduction. At Hill 875, availability means standing within arm's reach of the platoon sergeant when he needs a volunteer who is not allowed to refuse. The result is untrained operators using a weapon that demands precision timing under conditions that guarantee exposure. Kelly fires the M2 once in combat and dies doing it. His casualty card lists cause of death as multiple gunshot wounds. The card makes no mention of the flamethrower, the assignment, the 30 seconds of instruction, or the 49 minutes between strapping on the tanks and dying on the helicopter. Not because the flamethrower is irrelevant to his death, but because there is no administrative category for it. March 15th, 1969. Military Assistance Command, Vietnam Headquarters, Tan Son Nhut Air Base, Saigon. Analysts in the Combined Intelligence Center Vietnam translate a captured People's Army of Vietnam training manual recovered from a regimental headquarters near the A Shau Valley. The manual, dated October 1968, provides instructions for squad and platoon leaders defending fortified positions. Page 47 lists target priorities for defensive fire. First priority, officers and non-commissioned officers. Second priority, radio men carrying AN/PRC-25 backpack radios. Third priority, automatic weapons crews including M60 machine gunners. Fourth priority, soldiers carrying flame weapons identified by twin cylindrical tanks on the back. The manual instructs defenders to engage flame weapon operators before they close to within 30 meters, because beyond 30 meters, flame cannot reach defensive positions. Within 30 meters, the operator becomes the most dangerous individual target. The instruction continues: if the fuel tanks are hit and rupture, burning fuel may spread to other American soldiers and cause additional casualties plus confusion that disrupts the assault. This is not the first captured document identifying flamethrower operators as priority targets. Combined Intelligence Center Vietnam files contain 6 similar documents captured between 1966 and 1969. All 6 list flame weapons among the top 5 target priorities. 3 explicitly state that destroying the operator early preserves bunker viability and forces Americans to use less effective weapons that require more ammunition and time. One document from 1967 notes that American units typically carry only 1 or 2 flamethrowers per company, meaning neutralizing the operator eliminates the flame threat entirely for that engagement. The targeting doctrine reflects calculated analysis of American infantry tactics. U.S. forces approach fortified positions with combined arms. Rifle squads provide base of fire. M60 machine guns suppress defensive positions and specialized weapons. Flamethrowers, law, rockets, recoilless rifles destroy specific bunkers. Remove the flamethrower from the assault, and the bunker survives longer. The flamethrower stands out because, unlike the M60 or the M79, which can engage from concealed positions at 50 to 100 meters, the M2 must approach to 20 meters in full view of defenders. The operator must stand. He must move forward. He must expose himself to deliver fire. From a captured People's Army of Vietnam training manual dated October 1968. Shoot the soldier with the tanks on his back before he reaches 20 meters. If the tanks explode, the squad behind him stops. American doctrine acknowledges the vulnerability but offers no tactical solution that eliminates exposure. Field Manual 23-11, the Army's flamethrower manual published in March 1966. The operator must accept exposure to enemy fire during approach and engagement. Supporting fires and smoke should be used to reduce this exposure when possible. The manual does not explain how to eliminate exposure, only how to reduce it. But reduction is not elimination. The tanks are visible at 100 meters in jungle, 200 in open ground. The ignition is visible at 300 meters. The flash, the vapor trail, the column of flame arcing toward the target. No amount of covering fire changes the fact that the operator must stand upright with 72 pounds on his back to use the weapon effectively. And standing upright means becoming visible, and becoming visible means drawing fire. Between 1965 and 1970, Military Assistance Command Vietnam does not maintain separate casualty statistics for flamethrower operators. They appear in records as riflemen, engineers, or infantrymen killed or wounded in action, categorized by military occupational specialty, not by weapon carried. What the captured documents confirm is that both sides understand the tactical equation. The flamethrower works if the operator survives the approach, and enemy doctrine focuses on ensuring he does not survive. Always on the list, always identified by the silhouette, always engaged before effective range. Tanks on his back. By 1970, the M2 backpack flamethrower begins disappearing from United States Army and Marine Corps unit inventories without formal announcement. Commanders replace it with mechanized systems, M67 flame tanks and M10-8 flamethrower-equipped armored personnel carriers, that deliver fire without exposing a man. Where terrain prevents mechanized operations, units substitute thermite grenades and white phosphorus rockets. The phase-out receives no doctrinal explanation. The weapon simply fades from assault plans. April 1st, 1970, 2 in the morning. Indochina time. Firebase Illingworth, Tai Ninh Province. Specialist 4 Thomas Hawk wakes to the sound of mortar rounds impacting inside the firebase perimeter. Hawk is a combat engineer with Company C, 2nd Battalion, 8th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division. He has carried the M2 flamethrower on 7 operations since January. Tonight, the firebase holds 200 American soldiers and 1 battery of howitzers surrounded by People's Army of Vietnam forces estimated at 2 battalions, 800 to 1,000 soldiers, preparing a ground assault. The attack begins with mortars and rockets, followed by sappers who breach the perimeter wire with explosives. PAVN infantry assault through the gaps. By 2:30 in the morning, North Vietnamese soldiers are inside the perimeter fighting American troops at ranges measured in meters. Hawk's engineer platoon defends the western berm where the wire has been cut in 3 places. Someone yells for the flamethrower. Hawk grabs the M2 and straps 72 pounds onto his back in darkness, while tracers cross overhead. He moves toward the wire where PAVN infantry are consolidating their breach. At 30 meters, he can see muzzle flashes. At 20 meters, effective range. He raises the wand and squeezes the trigger. Flame illuminates the wire, and the bodies tangled in it, and the PAVN soldiers moving through the breach. The 2-second burst catches 3 soldiers directly. They fall burning. Others scatter. Hawk fires again, sweeping left across the breach. The second burst empties his first tank. RPG fire strikes the berm 2 meters to his right. The explosion throws him sideways. AK fire begins tracking toward him from multiple positions outside the wire, converging on the point where flame originated. He rises and fires the last burst toward the heaviest concentration of muzzle flashes, then drops the flamethrower, empty, useless weight, and runs back to his platoon position carrying only his M16 rifle. The flamethrower lies in the dirt near the wire. No one retrieves it. The firebase holds until dawn when helicopter gunships and tactical air support arrive. PAVN forces withdraw at 6:45 in the morning. Firebase Illingworth counts its cost. 24 American soldiers killed, 54 wounded. After-action reports credit Hawk's flamethrower with breaking the PAVN assault. Hawk receives the Bronze Star Medal with V device for valor. The citation does not mention that he could not go prone under fire because of the tanks on his back, or that AK rounds tracked him the instant he ignited, or that he abandoned the weapon in the dirt because carrying it back was suicide. 3 weeks later, 2nd Battalion, 8th Cavalry, receives orders to turn in its remaining M2 flamethrowers to 1st Cavalry Division supply. No replacement weapons are issued. Hawk never carries the M2 again. No one in his company does. The weapon disappears from the table of organization and equipment without ceremony, without explanation. The phase-out spreads across Military Assistance Command Vietnam units between 1970 and 1972 with no formal directive. Units stop requesting M2 resupply. Flamethrowers reported as combat losses are not replaced. By 1972, the M2 has effectively disappeared from ground combat operations in Vietnam. Post-war analysis identifies 3 factors driving the informal phase-out. First, casualty rates among operators are understood by field commanders to be unsustainably high. Second, the weapon's tactical niche, short-range bunker reduction at 20 meters, overlaps with other systems that do not require exposing a man at close range. Third, By 1970, American ground operations shift from large-scale sweeps against fortified positions toward fire-based defense and small unit patrols, where flamethrowers provide minimal utility. The combination makes the M2 obsolete not because the weapon fails mechanically or tactically, but because the human cost of using it exceeds its tactical benefit. That cost is measured in men. Every flamethrower attack requires a man to cross open ground with 72 pounds on his back, while every enemy weapon swings toward him. The weapon works when he survives long enough to deliver flame. No doctrine can guarantee that. No training can eliminate the exposure the weapon demands by design. What changes between 1965 and 1970 is the willingness to demand it. In 1965, commanders assign flamethrowers because doctrine lists them as standard bunker reduction tools. By 1970, commanders stop assigning them because too many operators do not come back. The moral calculus shifts from "we need flame to take that bunker" to "we need that man alive for the next patrol." Units find other ways to reduce bunkers. They call in artillery, they use explosives, they bypass strong points and call airstrikes. They do anything except ask one man to stand upright with tanks on his back and walk toward the guns. Veterans remember the shift as quiet and inevitable. One day the battalion has flamethrowers, the next month they are gone. No one asks why, because everyone already knows. They know who carried the tanks and who did not come back. They remember the silhouette with twin cylinders rising above prone riflemen. They remember the 3-second burst when flame announced position and every weapon swung toward that point. They remember tanks on his back, everyone else stepping back, and the unspoken relief when the weapon disappeared and no one had to be that man anymore. The flamethrower does not fail tactically. It fails morally, because asking one man to stand upright in a kill zone so everyone else can stay prone is a transaction no unit can sustain once the cost becomes clear. November 10th, 1982. Vietnam Veterans Memorial Dedication, Washington. Thomas Hawk stands before the black granite wall and traces names with his finger until he finds Holland, David M., line 027. Holland died on Hill 875 in November 1967 carrying the flamethrower that Hawk would carry 3 years later at Firebase Illingworth. Hawk did not know Holland. They served in different units, different years. But Hawk knows what Holland carried and what that assignment meant. He knows the geometry of standing upright with 72 pounds on your back while everyone else goes prone. He knows the 3 seconds of ignition when the world focuses on you. He knows the sound of AK fire adjusting toward your position the moment flame leaves the wand. He places a small American flag at the base of Panel 30 East, not for Holland specifically, but for all the men who carried tanks no one else wanted to carry. The memorial lists 58,220 names of Americans killed in Vietnam. None of the names carry a designation for flamethrower operator. They are listed as infantry, engineers, Marines, whatever their personnel file stated. But Hawk can identify some of them by date and unit and circumstance. He knows which operations used flamethrowers and which units carried them. He knows that in any major engagement where flame was employed, at least one name on this wall carried the M2 into effective range and paid for those 20 meters of fire with exposure no one else had to accept. The war produced no separate accounting for flamethrower operators. No study tracked their casualty rates. No memorial section names them specifically. They appear in after-action reports as casualties during bunker reduction or wounded during assault or simply killed in action. What survives is memory held by the men who served with them. They remember who got the assignment each morning and who walked forward while the squad stayed back. They remember tanks on his back, everyone else stepping back, and the weight of watching someone expose himself so you did not have to. The M2 flamethrower leaves United States military service in 1978 when the Army issues a supply bulletin directing units to turn in remaining inventory. No units report having any weapons to turn in. The M2s are already gone, lost to combat or forgotten in supply depots. The last generation of men who carried them ages into the silence that veterans keep about certain things, and the weapon fades from collective memory, except among those who knew its cost firsthand. Some weapons killed the enemy. This one chose you. The M2 Flamethrower promised 20 meters of flame for 72 pounds of exposure. It turned one man per platoon into a walking target because doctrine required bunkers burned and burning them required standing upright in a kill zone while everyone else stayed prone. The weapon worked when geometry allowed, when luck and covering fire kept the operator alive long enough to ignite. When geometry failed, everyone else stepped back and counted the cost in the man with tanks on his back.